Do you believe, based on your decade of serving in the U.S. government on this question, that the U.S. government has in its possession any material from one of these aircrafts?
I do, yes.
You think the U.S. government has debris from a UFO in its possession right now?
Unfortunately, Tucker, I really have to be careful of my NDA. I really can't go into a lot of more detail than that.
Okay.
But simply put, yes.
All right. Well, we have a lot more to find out.
And multiple efforts are underway to conduct scientific analysis of baffling samples of metamaterials acquired from so-called crash sites. Elizondo says it's too early to reveal what that analysis has uncovered, but says the initial work is promising.
Is there a form of physical evidence that's indisputable that we're going to know about?
I think there's a lot of things out there that we're looking into, to include tangibles in a real sense that will hopefully allow us to have a more comprehensive conversation. I don't want to lead the cart before the horse. There's a lot of analysis, there's a lot of homework that needs to be done, and probably the most irresponsible thing that I could do right now is say one thing one way and it turns out to be something else. So we remain, cautiously optimistic, right? And we're going to leave no stone unturned. And so far, the stones that we have turned over, some have yielded some really pretty fantastic results, but we still have a lot more stones to turn over.
What I'm trying to wrap my brain around is, how does one come to that conclusion? I understand theory and theoretical physics and math on paper, but beyond videos, photos, eyewitnesses,
radar.
How else are you studying UFOs?
Well, that's a great question. You study it any way you can. It's very much like recreating the scene of an accident. Okay, so you may come up to an accident and you see two cars collided, but you don't know the circumstances in which the accident occurred. So you start collecting the evidence. You start talking to eyewitnesses. You get the telemetry from the vehicle itself and the accelerometers. Then what you do is you find some cameras that were on the street corner that actually saw the cars 5 seconds before they hit. You talk to people that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but in your analogy, you said the vehicle itself is part of the evidence. You go up to it, you look at it, you examine it. Was that happening with AATIP?
Oh, wow, great question. I got to be careful how I answer this. That was certainly would be preferred. The intent of AATIP was to try to collect as much and any information and evidence that was possible, period. Whether it was electro-optical or electromagnetic or whatever. And certainly material science is certainly a gold standard. If you can get a piece of material and you can look at it, not just its physical properties, but its molecular chemical properties and ultimately its atomic properties, you can ascertain whether or not something has been engineered or manufactured, or if it's part of the natural environment.
Look, all those products that came out of the last space race required material science. Scientists, in some cases like you that are sitting in this room, we need your help. You don't have the material, you don't have the analysis, you don't have the data, you got nothing. So this is why forums like yours are so important. You gotta have scientists at the end of the day to figure out just what the hell it is we're looking at. What makes this material so special? Now, in some cases, this material was told it's special through analysis. Guess what? Not so special. But some of it is absolutely special. I won't point out which ones on that slide, but there are some that are absolutely special and have been briefed to some very, very senior levels of this government. And they do remarkable and extraordinary things, and they're built in such a way that to this day we still can't replicate it. To this day. Because you can imagine with something like this, there's all sorts of agencies and organizations that have an interest in this. I can't tell you which ones, unfortunately, but you can use your imagination. And it's not just propulsion. There's other organizations that can look at this, and say, let's say from, Let's say from an armor perspective, right? I put X amount of pounds of armor on a vehicle that slow me down and weigh me down. What if I didn't have to have armor at all? What if I had a way with certain material where bullets didn't matter anymore? It didn't do anything to me.
Is the government in possession of downed flying saucers and or Tic Tacs or whatever other shape they are in? Okay, let's listen as Lou answers a question from James.
Crash retrievals and materials. So I remember when you were on Tucker Carlson and you had the famous line of simply put, yes. You know, does the U.S. government possibly have materials? And when you asked that question, I went to Eric Davis and I asked him, what do you think about Lou's statement? And Eric Davis said, and he authorized it for public use. What Lue said is 1,000% correct. And the U.S. government has crashed and or landed UFOs. Why do you think he said that?
Well, I'm not going to answer for Eric Davis. Eric Davis is an incredible human being. I've had the honor and privilege of knowing him, and more importantly, I've also seen the work product that he's produced for this nation. And at some point, maybe one day, it'll be clear all the stuff he has done for his country. But he really is. When you talk about American heroes, he really is one of those. He falls in that category quite squarely. He's an amazing human being. So I'm not going to elaborate on what Eric Davis thinks or says or knows. He's his own man. I can tell you that when he tells you something, he tells you the truth. He has no motivation other than the truth.
Okay, so that's all Lue is willing to say on the issue, but that is a lot. He's saying that Eric Davis is telling the truth. Eric Davis is telling the truth about the U.S. being in possession of downed UFOs. Downed, crashed, and or landed UFOs. I think that's a very interesting distinction and suggesting that we may have both. Landed UFOs, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean that aliens have landed and then we stole their ship? Did they land and then they were killed and we recovered their ship? Did they land and give us their ship? What exactly does that mean? I have no idea. Now, Lue isn't coming right out and saying, yeah, there's UFOs and we have them, but he is, because that would violate his NDA, and I totally respect that. And I'm very happy that he can drop these hints without violating his NDA. But he is saying that, Eric is telling the truth. And what is he telling the truth about? Well, he's telling the truth about us, that is the U.S. government, having UFOs in their possession, which of course corroborates Bob Lazar's story and many others. There are countless stories of the government doing things involving UFOs, reverse engineering or back engineering their technology, using the fruits of that technology, actually dealing with the visitors directly and engaging in some sort of exchange or working together in some way.
He told me in a recent interview he does think there have been crash retrieval programs. Have you come across anything like that? Do you think that there have been programs to study, I guess, kind of like atoms, material retrieval?
Well, sure. I mean, the government always has. I mean, we have an entire capability within our intelligence community that studies material, whether it's material from a foreign military technology or anything else. We're always trying to figure out what something is, and that holds true to anything. So, as far as specifically confirming whether or not we have a collection capability for the study of UAP, I am going to politely decline from answering that question. I'm no longer in the U.S. government, and so therefore, for me, answering on behalf of the U.S. government would not be in good faith. Now, I did say, for the record, when I was asked on recent interview by Tucker Carlson, do I believe that their material exists? absolutely stand by that statement, but unfortunately, I don't think I can elaborate more on that.
I've heard you say in a number of interviews, people have brought up the recovered craft. And, there's a lot of people that will say, hey, how the heck can these craft, travel the universe or whatever it is they're doing and get here and then somehow crash? And I know you can't, if you know something that's classified, I know you can't talk about it, but do you think it's possible that somewhere there is this material? I think you've been asked that question directly.
Yeah, I've stated for the record what my belief is. And simply put, yes, I believe that there are elements within the U.S. government that are in possession of some very exotic material that needs further analysis and study. And that is my personal belief based upon my personal observations during my time in this program and afterwards. But I'm going to be very careful not to state something that really isn't up to me to discuss. If the government is in possession of something, it then is up to the government to make a determination how it wants to let the American people know. So as far as you're talking about crash retrievals, et cetera, that's really up to the government to decide to discuss what it has and doesn't have. And that's true whether it's parts of some sort of new technology from our foreign adversary that we happen to collect, or a new type of part of a satellite platform, or a new part of a UAP, UFO. The government ultimately is going to have to answer that. I suspect that there is an effort underway right now within the government to address that, but specifically how and by whom, I can't elaborate.
Okay, so in your time with AATIP, you get a lot of footage, a lot of data, but at the time you're working there, did you ever observe with your own eyes and ears something?
Yeah, but I've always been very careful not to talk about it publicly, because I don't want my own opinion to skew the facts and the collection of data. It's very important to me that we remain agnostic or neutral in our bias when we're collecting this information. Otherwise, I'm just as guilty as anybody else of superimposing potentially my own narrative and biasing the analysis, which is critical that we don't do that.
You were at Tucker Carlson and you stated that there is UAP material in American government hands that can be investigated. What does exotic material comprehend? Have you seen it, and have you investigated it?
I have stated that my belief is that the U.S. government is in possession. When I say U.S. government, or its organizations, institutions, and companies, contractors that work for it, are in possession of very exotic material that may very well not be from here. I have said that for the record. I have seen material, and I've seen documentation that supports that. I've seen analysis that supports that conclusion. I think it's a little bit probably at this point premature. We still need to do more analysis. We need to have, of course, a scientific methodology followed. It needs to be peer reviewed, repeatable, all the things that we require in the scientific community to establish the facts around something. But, at the end of the day, we have only had the technology over the last decade, maybe decade and a half, to do atomic engineering. And that is, when I say atomic, I mean precision nano engineering, being able to develop material with a precise atomic ratio, isotopic ratio, and have that isotopic ratio consistent and uniform throughout the material. That's very, very complex, very, very expensive, very, very technical. And when you have material in your possession, in your hand, that predates any of that technology, and it's clearly engineered, then you're forced to come to the conclusion that someone made it, something made it. And the
So are we
question
talking
is,
about an archaeological find?
I'm not going to go into details of that, of the provenance of the material.
You said there was no DNA, but there was another biological chemical that's equivalent to human DNA. Can we know a little bit more about that? Because of course, if you treat it like that, there is something biological, so alive, to investigate.
Yeah, I think there may be some confusion there. I think what I was trying to communicate is that there were indicators that these things were being intelligently controlled, and that there was some sort of intelligence, life that was controlling these things. Not necessarily, a body, so to speak. There is some discussion that there may have been some sort of biological samples obtained. The details of that will probably have to come out through other channels. I've been privy to some discussion, but the problem, it's just that, and we have to be very, very careful. I don't want to say anything that can't be substantiated.
These are Navy ships. You're talking about U.S. Navy surface vessels, blue water ops. There's no horizon anywhere nearby.
Correct.
They're seeing these things fly over them in formation. Are they doing anything? What's happening out there?
Sometimes they're just hovering over our capabilities.
Do we try and shoot them down?
I'm not going to elaborate on what countermeasures the U.S. government might or might not be employing. I'm going to leave that up to the government to make that statement. But as you know, we do have counter drone technology. We do have that. It's not that tough to zap one of these things if it was a drone. If I'm on my boat in the Chesapeake and I come within 300 feet of a ship, they have the authorization to shoot me out of the water. And by the way, they will. So same thing holds true for drones. Right. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend taking a drone and trying to tease a U.S. Navy warship. That's not advisable.
So obviously we haven't been able to shoot one down, or we haven't gotten one of these things, have we? Do these things exist in a hangar, Area 51, or even better, Area 50? No one ever talks about Area 52. That's area.
Right. That's right. Area 52. Yeah, I've said that before. I'm not going to elaborate. I've said for the record, and I'll stick to what I've said before. It is my belief that the U.S. government is in possession of extremely exotic material, and that's about all I can say about that right now. I have to be careful of still have my security clearance.